Speaker. It's an honor to rise today to speak to Bill C-68, an act to amend the Mackenzie Valley Resource Management Act and the Canadian Petroleum Resources Act. I say it's an honor, but I really question that when I take a look at what this bill is proposing to do, and I say proposing because I hope we can make changes to it. As we see in this bill is what we've seen in other bills and actions by this government. Basically, they are anti-resource actions. The first action we saw on this was November of 2015, very early on in this government's reign, hopefully a very short reign, but it was very early on, barely a month in, when the Prime Minister decided to shut down the Northern Gateway project that would have taken oil resources from northern Alberta to Tidewater. Rather than work with the challenges that were identified in that project, he decided basically unilaterally, without debate in the House, without any criticism over his actions, he decided to shut that down. People in the north were looking forward to those jobs. People at the ports, people right across the country could have benefited from those jobs. But no, he made the decision single-handedly almost, or was it single-handedly? Was it from his, some of his senior advisors? But there was certainly very little input or debate in this House on that. The next was the Energy East pipeline, a pipeline that would have taken Canadian products, high-quality products produced and refined in Canada to Eastern Canada to fuel the needs of Eastern Canada. But instead of allowing that project to proceed, he canned it as well. So where are we at now? We're still bringing in billions of dollars of foreign oil that's produced in countries with lower environmental standards that we have in Canada, lower human rights standards that we have here in Canada, lower technologies than we have here in Canada. That's the type of choice that this Prime Minister and this government have been making. They have been penalizing Canadian resource workers, companies and businesses that supply that resource sector from right across the country. A lot of people think that the only jobs affected are those in Alberta or those on the oil sands projects. But those jobs stretch far further than that, Madam Speaker. I live in the North Okanagan Shuswap, south central part of BC, a long ways from the Alberta oil sands, but very close for some of the businesses and some of the workers in my communities. I visited a machine shop that builds the highest quality parts and pieces for the oil sector. Everything from pipe fittings to brackets and attachments that they use in the oil sector. And when I visited that machine shop and talked to the managers and the people there, the pride that they took in the quality of products that they built because of the technology that's developed out of the resource sector in Canada is second to none. They manufacture and machine to a quality higher than anywhere else in the world. And it's because of one thing, because we had a strong resource sector in Canada. They have seen their technology work. They have improved on it continuously, and they have decided to go into a niche market of only looking at that top-end, high-quality, high environmental standard, high safety standard product, because there are people and businesses competing all over the world for 20-year-old technology that's used in some of those countries that I just referred to that have lower environmental standards, lower human rights standards, and lower worker safety standards. These are the types of things that this government continues to penalize Canadians for being innovative, for being creative, for taking the risk, sometimes risking millions of dollars, their personal investments, their family homes, to build a business or an industry that is reliant on the Canadian resource sector. This bill is another step in that direction. They're taking what we had done in the previous government and in reducing the size of bureaucracy, making it easier for projects to move forward, still with the same high environmental standards that we have in Canada. But now they're splitting it up, making it so a major project like the Mackenzie Valley Pipeline would have to go through multiple individual steps all the way through. That's the kind of thing that this bill does, and as I mentioned, it's similar to many other bills in some other ways. I'm very familiar with Bill C-55, the Oceans Act, and the unilateral power that that bill gives to the minister. The unilateral power to shut down activities in an area, regardless of whether there's scientific evidence as to the effects or not. Bill C-68 does much the same thing. Bill C-69, that's been referred to as the Never Do Anything Ever Again bill, is now in the Senate, I believe. Those bills have given unprecedented unilateral power to ministers to make decisions without it being based on science, without it being based on debate, but to make those unilateral decisions to shut down activities. The other one that came across that we saw for the first time was in Bill C-69, or pardon me, Bill C-68, the Fisheries Act. And there's a paragraph in there that says the minister, on making decisions on a project, must consider the intersection of sex and gender into his decision-making process. We saw that clause in the bill, and it baffled us. What does that mean in a Fisheries Act bill? And we have to wonder what it means in a Resource Act bill. So the briefing we got to sum it down and really simplify it, it meant that any project moving forward had to look at the impact of outside workers coming into a community in a camp, for example, the impact of the growth in the community, the impact of, as they said, sex and gender into the project. That didn't seem too bad all in itself until the minister, or the Prime Minister, actually, I believe, was questioned on that and started referring to resource and construction workers as a threat to communities. I believe he called them dangerous. They could present a danger in those communities. We heard the outcry from people in communities where they had seen the benefits of those projects. They absolutely couldn't believe that those construction workers could be considered a threat. But now we see this trend continuing on with this government, attempting to shut down anything that resembles a major resource project. Those projects are going to be needed, Madam Speaker, if Canada is going to continue to prosper and thrive as we move forward. We know that countries with strong economies create the best environmental conditions and protect their environment better than those countries that aren't. And yet this government wants to seem to take away anything that would allow benefit and prosper in this country. We've seen it in their previous budgets where they attempted to attack small business, where they have attempted to attack family farms and the succession planning of small business to be able to pass their family businesses and farms onto their family members. Places where, instances where it was going to cost them as much as 4 times higher to sell the family farm to a family member than to a total stranger or a foreign entity. absolutely atrocious attack on small business and small farms, family farms. Time already, Madam Speaker? Thank you. I didn't get a warning, so I'll cut it short there. Thank you.
Yeah, there was just a little bit of time left, and I was waiting for the 1 minute and then got sidetracked in your speech. So questions and comments?